Well, hey friends, good to be back. I'm excited to have Andrew Holley with us. And Andrew, how does it feel knowing you are the season finale?
Feels pretty great. I just found out, so I haven't really had time to let my head swell to its proper size, but I'm honored and excited.
Well, I wanted to make you the season finale because I think, we all have interesting stories, but the story I want to ask you about today is a transition you went through that is pretty wild and most people would not choose. And so, Andrew, before we jump into that story, tell us a little bit about who you are, what your work, what you do, your family, what you do for fun, any of those types of things.
Yeah, so I'm Andrew Holley. I am a musician. I'm a software person. I'm a dad of three kids, a husband. We live in Atlanta and we love it. Most of the time, it's been raining every day here. But most of the time we love it. I'm from Georgia, I've grown up around here, and I can't quit it. I'm addicted.
Ah,
So
your
um,
your whole life? Serious?
yeah, little stint away for school, and but yeah, pretty much all here.
Okay. And what about for fun? What do you do?
Um, I have to spend a lot of time on the music, and that is fun. We'll get into that a little bit, but I'm a starter, and so I'll start little hobbies. I'm looking at one of them right now on my desk. I got all these estate pipes that I started refinishing, and there's about 18 that I've yet to do. But I got six nice pipes that I've restored.
Hmm.
Um, really silly stuff like that. Whatever feels good to occupy my time with and my hands with. I'll get addicted to it for a season. Um, but but yeah, mostly I got a guitar in my hands these days.
Nice. When you say an estate pipe, do you mean one that you picked up at an estate sale?
Yeah, it just means that
Okay.
some old dude had been smoking it for 45 years,
Okay, okay, okay. I was
and
like,
so
is
we
this a
just
special brand I've never heard of?
no,
So
yeah.
cool. Well, I wanted to interview you for a long time. I've seen some of your evolution through the years. We met years ago back in the pastoral days when you were a pastor, and
Hmm.
I caught some glimpses through the years of some ups and downs that you went through. And as we are in our last episode in this season on transitions, one of the things that we're talking a lot about is how every transition season is inaugurated by an ending of some sort. And then there's a murky middle, and then a new beginning of some kind. So, if you will, tell us a little bit about what your life was before your ending, and then the
Yeah.
ending, and how things changed, and we'll see where this goes.
Yeah, so I spent I'll just start with the 20s. I spent the bulk of my 20s, like you mentioned, in pastoral ministry of some sort, um, whether it was worship leading or pastoring or what some in the biz called church planting. Um, and from 2015, 2016, somewhere around there, until really sometime last year, we were in charge of kind of a what you might call a house church or a micro church. But really, it just meant that we had decided to just pastor a very small, intentional community. And Yeah, we did that for about 9 years, and I say we because my wife was fully caught up in the enterprise, and her name is Morgan, and so not only was she supporting, she was helping shepherd and actually lead the thing, and but it really just looked like people getting together, eating, sharing stories, always kind of asking questions about how the the story of God or the idea of God um, intersects with what we now know about the world. And it ended up being a lot of people that were on the edge or the fringes of the church in one direction or another. You know, like some of our neighbors who never found a place in religion, and they found that a brunch spot right around the corner at Andrew's house is the right way to explore that, and then stop exploring or keep exploring.
Hmm.
And then some people that were on their way out of organized religion, this was kind of a cushy landing spot to see if there was any faith left. And so we caught a lot of those. And yeah, so we really what it looked like was us almost having an open door policy 24/7 at our house, which, you know, we could debate the merits of that. Um, but we kind of became the community people in our neighborhood, and it filled up all of our days and most of our nights,
Mm.
some of our midnights.
Wow.
Um, yeah.
What did that
Um,
do to you having an open door 24/7 for that many years?
um, I think it kind of, if you'll forgive the contradiction here, but I think it kind of formed us and deformed us in some ways,
Hmm. Hmm.
because it was very formative and very there's a lot of opportunities to grow when you know that people are going to be popping in. Well, you know that people really are just going to be relying on you, whether it's relying on your presence in a time of need, or whether it's relying on you to help them out of a crisis, or it's so there. Yeah, we learned a lot. What it I think the best way to summarize what it was like is exhausting in hindsight,
Hmm.
and that's the deforming part. Is that we um, once you get into that pattern and people get used to that kind of access, it's hard to turn that switch off.
Hmm.
And not that at any point we were desperate to turn it off, you know, but it's just we would go on and on and on and ignore our own exhaustion.
Hmm.
And so that's, you know, that's what that looks like a lot.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I can see how on one level it would be forming because it teaches you to be dependable, show up, be as steady as you can. But the deforming part, the metaphor that comes to my mind is like the frog in the kettle where the heat is gradually rising, but the frog doesn't know it because it's in the water all the time. So
Mm.
you had this heat, that was rising all the time, and you didn't know it because you were in it. What were some of the signs that maybe, in hindsight, that maybe you should have paid attention to the heat that was going on in your lives at that point?
Um, I'm not sure. That's a difficult question to answer because I don't think I realized a lot of it until way hindsight.
Hmm.
Um, and what you know, I don't want to say I had, you know, as I was healing from it necessarily,
Hmm.
because not everything was something to be healed from. But just in the recovery phase, you don't realize um, how deep into something you are, or just how neglectful of your own needs you were until you have a chance to kind of replenish and rejuvenate, and you're like, oh wow, my battery recharges this much. That's so weird. um, and I do think that um, you know, I I didn't realize how much at the time my kids were sacrificing for that project. And they wouldn't realize it either, but just my presence and my time.
Hmm.
And so the time these days that I get to just hang and be a dad, is, and it's not a lot, but I do love it.
Hmm.
It's a sweet thing.
That's great, man. I can identify in my own way. I mean, my kids were raised like that. And it is nice, when you finally get a little margin to step away and say, actually, it's just me and you. Nobody else, needs my attention. And I kind of like this, you know? Take it easy. So life's cooking along
Hmm.
and some chaos starts to come in. Share a little bit about the ending and the chaos and the murky middle. What happened?
Yeah. So thank you for drawing out the the story, because it is, you know, the we did go through crisis, which I'll flesh out more in a minute. But I think that the when you talk about an ending and a murky middle in the beginning, our murky middle was it protracted, extended. It was felt like a long time, and so um, we we had moved to this part of Atlanta in late 2015, early 2016, um, and we did that for what seemed for years. I talked about the open door policy, and um, it felt like a decade. Turns out that phase was really just 3.5 years.
Would it feel like 10?
Yeah, and so by in the middle of May of 2019, after my wife and I got back from our anniversary trip to Santa Fe, New Mexico, which was wonderful and rejuvenating. And we come back and we're like, all right, we're ready to go again. About a week later, the house that we were living in burns down. And it's more dramatic than you're probably thinking. Even a house fire is dramatic, but it was the worst case scenario. 2 a.m. The fire alarm goes off. Um, Check your batteries, people, by the way, because it did save our life. So there's our little plug for home safety.
Yeah.
Um, but Morgan nudges me in the middle of the night. I'm a heavy sleeper, and she just thinks that there's a noise happening downstairs, and so I go check it, probably with a terrible attitude. And then by the time I get to the bottom of the steps, there's just this glowing, and our house at that point it's just the back patio that's on fire. Um, and all the instincts kick in. So I go fully wake Morgan up. We go grab the kids. We have 3 kids, and so I have 2 kids in my arm. She has one, and at this point, our kids are like 2 years apart. So they would have been like 7, 5, and 3, or 8, 6, and 4, or something like that. And so we go out in our underwear, literally, just like we pour into the street. I try to go back inside. Again, this is 2 a.m. and I know that I got to wake my neighbors up, and I don't want to wake them up in my underwear. And so I like try to. I'm thinking I'm going to go back inside and get pants and like maybe our phones and whatever. Um, and by the time I open the door back up, the front door to go inside, again, the fire is in the back of the house. The living room was so full of smoke that I couldn't take one step in. That's how quick it happened, and how bad it could have been. Obviously, by opening that front door, we created some of that environment. But there was no breathable air in the house about 20 seconds after we got out.
Man, what goes through your mind in those few moments? Glow, get the kids, get outside. I'm gonna get some pants. No, I'm not. Like, what's going on inside you at that point?
The best I can remember, there's nothing going on. I'm not thinking at all. I'm just reacting.
Mm.
Because I don't even remember. I kind of remember flashes of like scooping the kids up, um, And the worst part about it in hindsight is that the fire was ignited right under my kids' bedrooms,
Wow.
because they kind of had like an overhang situation at the patio.
Yeah.
Um, and so their rooms got the worst of it. And so if we would have been 5 minutes later, God forbid,
Mm.
um, but we got out with t-shirts on our backs, um, and our we got out with our kids. And as we all know, like that's the super important thing. We got the people, and we didn't have any animals. And then I was banging on my neighbors' homes, trying to get them out of their house, so that because we were living in townhomes. So I just
Oh.
wanted to make sure that everybody was good. And we had a young family to one side of us, and we had an elderly guy that was to the other side of us. And we couldn't reach him so I was going to break down his door. And there was, it was just, there was about 10 minutes of total chaos there. And, neighbors are bringing us inside and, clothing us and helping us call family and figure out what we're going to do. But yeah, there was not a lot of thinking. It was just like acting, um, getting out of that house. Yeah.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, and you were on the receiving end now.
Hmm.
What was that like to be giving a couple of years to opening your lives in your home and then to go into a phase where you don't have anything?
Right.
And how did that reciprocate in some ways with some of those people and even strangers?
Yeah, it was beautiful. The our neighbors across the street, John and Mary, brought us in. Literally gave us shorts and shirts, and Mary was going into her closet to find her kids' old stuffies so that my kids could have something,
Mm-hmm.
just to hold while they process.
Mm-hmm.
John gave me a pair of undersized Crocs that I still have to this day. I didn't give them back. um, and, so that, like, that immediate part was it was beautiful for us in all the chaos. And as we remember back to it, it was like, wow, that's exactly what we would have done.
Mm-hmm.
And they just instinctively just brought us in and treated us like family.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the days after, really like less than a day after, because when that happens on a street and everybody in those few blocks, um, a several home house fire doesn't just pass the neighborhood by. Everybody's like, oh my gosh. And so
Yeah.
our phones are blowing up, and there's a GoFundMe. And so the our neighbors begin to meet our needs. What do you need? I think and this is something to tuck away, I think, for your listeners, for as you try to help people that are going through like an intense crisis like that just hits you in the face. Um, you don't know what you need. And so finally, I just had to tell people I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
I might be able to tell you in like a week, maybe not. But I'm not saying don't do anything, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. And so, now when I try to reach out to people who are in the middle of of an acute crisis like that, I always try to find like the mediator for that person, like who's helping them manage this crisis, and just get their number and help through them. Because
Mm-hmm.
mom and dad are traumatized in this instance, and like we're really just trying to make sure our kids are
Yeah.
okay. And we do need clothes, and we need somewhere to stay, and we need food, and we will need all of that. But I can't manage it.
Mm. Well, yeah, it's like grief, when my mom was dying and I was taking care of her, there were some well-meaning people who would say, "What can we do? Anything you need." And I'm like, I'm just trying to survive, man. I've lost 15 pounds taking care of this dying person who I love. My world
Hmm.
is turned upside down. I really don't know how to answer any of this. And thankfully, there was this one woman, I don't remember, even remember her name. She showed up one day and she was like, David, what if I just brought you a big pizza once a week? I was like, yes, please. So once a week,
Absolutely.
she would show up with this big pizza, and I would sit outside in the woods by myself and eat it. I
I
was
love that for you.
I was so exhausted in the middle of grief and pain and question marks and loss, and I just needed a few moments of quiet to just feed myself without urgency. And then I'll go
Hmm.
back inside and the chaos would continue. I'm envisioning you kind of like in a metaphorical similar situation where I don't know what I need, and somebody shows up with the pizza, and you're just like, this is the best thing.
Absolutely.
What were the kind of pizza like things that showed up for you during that time?
Um, People would just show up with bags of clothes, which is kind of like the pizza,
Hmm.
except um, you do have to find somewhere to put that stuff that you're not going to wear. So that's a, but we were just like so blown away. I think that we didn't have near enough renters insurance. I don't think anybody ever does. Um, but what we had, we thought, oh, there's no way we have this much, uh, stuff to replace, whatever it was, 80 grand. It's more than enough. No, like it, it's like you can barely replace appliances and furniture and stuff with that.
Hmm.
And so people raised money. Our neighbors, helped us raise money. The A ton of food was brought. We ended up living with friends and with family who just like showed up and said, "Hey, our place is open." We had some neighbors who are amazing people, but we weren't very close friends. We just knew of each other, and we knew we had some similar interests. And they messaged me and said, "Hey, we're going out of town for these weeks. Please just come have our house." And so some people that we didn't even really know, except like by name and face, now we're sleeping in their beds and like um, that was cool.
Man, how amazing. So you lost everything.
We lost everything. I'm kind of bad about leaving stuff in my cars. Um, and so we did have a bunch of stuff in in the truck and in the van, um, including a couple of instruments. But the only thing I'll say this: the only thing that actually made it out of the fire itself. I'm trying to make sure I'm accurate. We saved some stuff for like sentimental value that is just like it's like art for us now, but it's
Mhm.
destroyed.
Mhm.
It's a memento. But my acoustic guitar survived somehow in the case. Is like underneath a chair, and the TV on the wall that was right above it had melted off the wall. Um,
Mhm.
so somehow, I don't know. It was like that guitar that my parents got me for high school graduation.
Mhm.
Um, it was almost like something just wrapped that guitar up and said, you need this to be saved."
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's a good segue because now for our listeners, you have become a musician. And
Yeah.
so I want to hear about that, of course, but before we get there, you've lost everything. You've got a couple random things in your car. You've got Crocs that are too small. You've got this one acoustic guitar. Uh, maybe like a half-eaten bag of chips you left in your car, like that, not a lot.
Absolutely.
And so you enter into this phase of who am I now? Where do I go? What do I do? What do I want to continue from my old life that's burned away?
Hmm.
Share how you navigated this season of time that was filled with so many unknowns.
That's a great question. I think that our default was just to try to get it back to normal as soon as possible. And some of that was is maybe wrong, maybe right thinking for our kids, just like, hey, let's as as soon as we can find a place to rent, let's keep having our church family over. Let's get back into the rhythms of life that made everything at that time in the old life feel normal. And so we found a place to rent that was like a mile away. We had a few parties. We had people over. Um, During this time, and this is like a little bit before the world begins to shut down because of the thing that happened.
Yeah.
And so we're we're like buying furniture off of like the internet,
Hmm.
um, and like putting beds together. People are donating dishes and furniture, and so literally somebody came over and gave us like half a house full of furniture, and it was
Wow.
amazing. But we had this rental, and we were just trying to figure out how to get back to life as usual, assuming that that's what we were supposed to do. And so we tried to engage all those rhythms back as quickly as possible without. I won't say we didn't take a break, and we definitely did. But if I could have spoken to 33-year-old Andrew, I would have been like, "Bro, let's let's take two beats.
Yeah, right.
Just just think about your needs, your family's needs, and yeah. So we're also trying to figure out what our world was going to be moving forward because we found this temporary house to live in that we couldn't afford. We could only afford it for a stretch because of the kindness of some people who were like, we can do this for 6 months, and then so it had like an end date, right? And so we found the cheapest house in our neighborhood to buy, and literally needed to be torn down, but we didn't tear it down. Um, and so we began what ended up being a 3-year renovation on this house that nobody in their right mind would have tried to renovate. Only because we were convinced that we were supposed to live in this community with these people and continue investing and doing and serving in the ways that we were. And so we were like, long term, it only makes sense if we can find a really cheap
Hmm.
house to buy.
Yeah.
And so um, we began doing that. I tried to do a lot of the work myself. We got contractors, obviously, because we're not totally insane, but we are we are a little bit. We take on a little more than we should.
Well, hold on now.
Um,
Yes, you are taking on more than you should.
yeah.
What I'm thinking of, Andrew, listening to you is the book called Self-Compassion by Dr. Kristen Neff. Have you read this book?
No.
It's amazing. You ought to check it out. Um, but Dr. Kristen Neff is the world's foremost researcher on self-compassion. And what she found was we could define self-compassion as learning to extend to ourselves the same grace, care, kindness that we would to someone else.
Hmm.
So let's make believe you had a friend whose house just burned down. What would you say to them? I'll tell you what you probably wouldn't say. You probably
Yeah.
wouldn't say, get an apartment, open it back up for more parties, get a house in your neighborhood and renovate it ASAP. What what
Absolutely not.
I mean, you'd probably say something like, you went through a major loss. it's going to take you at least 6 months to figure out who you are now. Take some deep breaths and don't jump into any big commitments right now. But we don't do that because what
Yeah.
happens a lot in transition, because I've done this too, is we'll try to get the threads of our old life and we'll pull on them and try to pull ourselves back into it when
Yeah.
it may not fit us anymore. And so you're doing some
Absolutely.
of that and you're trying to get this house going. What happened with the house?
Um, what happened is it strung us along forever. Um, and we were we were relying on the kindness of friends who would, let us live with them for a season, or my parents who would let us live with them, but they were a little further out, so that when especially when we were living with my folks for the better part of 2 years, um, that was like a 45 or 50-minute commute for my kids to school every morning and every afternoon.
Mm, wow.
Um, and so that was just another form of exhaustion, for all of us. Everybody's waking up at 5:30 and trying to get to school, and
Hmm. Yeah.
everybody's frustrated because that's a weird way to live.
Hmm.
Um, Either me or Morgan are having to choose who's going to stay in town, work from a coffee shop, pick the kids up, bring them home. Can you make that work with your meetings? Whatever, right? It's
Mm.
do do you have the bandwidth and the emotional health
Hmm.
to make that drive today with the kids, or
Mm.
or do you need to
Yeah.
stay home and then I'll figure it out, right?
Yeah. Well, and so
And,
eventually, you're doing all this and you realize it's too much. I just can't keep
yeah.
this up. How did you decide this is too much?
Really, it again, I didn't. I'll figure out that whatever I'm doing today is too much in about 5 years, I guarantee. Um, but we when we moved into the house, um, that was kind of like, as a milestone. It was a chance to kind of assess what we're doing and what we want to do.
Hmm.
And what we had thought was, when we get the new house, we designed it ourselves. We remodeled it to fit our life as hosts and as people who have kind of a community that operates with their house as ground zero, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the closer that we got to moving in, the more we realized we're pretty close to the shelf life on this church and this community. Um,
Hmm.
Not the people. We're definitely super close to all the people that were still with us. But we were during that time, our community was having to kind of float from house to house, and um, we just realized when it came time to open it back up and bring it to our house and kind of make that the place, or make it one of a few places. We just began to realize how exhausted we both were, um, and that in order to make this milestone be like the beginning of phase X, right? Like the next phase of our community, and figuring out how to be more welcoming and include more people in the project. Um, I was just like, I don't have the gas for that.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't have it. Um, and so we, I waited way too many weeks still to have the conversation with our folks and just say, hey, I. And it took me like probably the better part of an hour to get it out.
Oh, so you're in a
That
meeting and you're like, there's something I want to like talk to you about.
right. Um,
Wow.
and they all know what I'm going to say.
Okay.
I didn't realize that until after, but everybody's like, "Cool, we've been thinking the same thing."
Mm,
Um, you always said that this had a shelf life, and we've probably overlived it.
mm. Hmm.
Um,
How'd that feel when you
and
had that meeting and finally everyone's honest and they're like, yeah, we agree.
it was great.
Hmm.
I had some people that I was concerned about how they would take it,
Hmm.
because I thought this might be like the last thread that they're holding on to.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
and it turns out I was the person that was a mess.
Hmm.
I was weeping. Everybody else is like, dude, don't be weird. This is not a gang. We're still
Hmm.
friends.
But you said it was great. So
It was great.
unpack what is in that phrase for you. It was great.
Um, I I think that what made it great was that everybody came to the conclusion on their own.
Hmm.
Like nobody's having a side chat about this at all.
Hmm.
But by the time I had uh, gotten up the fortitude to have the conversation, everybody was prepared for it,
Hmm.
and they had kind of begun to think like, what does life and faith and what do our Sundays or Wednesdays or Tuesdays or whatever look like after this? And so everybody that was in the room was 100% ready to have that conversation, and
Hmm.
that was great.
What about
It
for
was
you personally? How was it great?
um it wasn't great until after, when I realized what had happened.
Hmm.
Because I was nervous about having the conversation.
Hmm.
And then once we like wrap, we pray, and we're like talking about stuff and eating what's left of breakfast, together
Hmm.
and hanging out and talking. Um, that's when it became great for me. I'm like, oh well, something just happened here that like I didn't have to worry about this, and
Hmm.
everybody's going to be okay.
Hmm.
And I don't, I don't think there's a moment where I felt like a weight lifted.
Yeah.
It was probably the next Sunday, is uh, when I'm sleeping in.
Uh-huh.
Um, Not really, but yeah. So that was great.
Yeah. I mean, probably a relief, to be like, okay, I've been running this long marathon. I can sit down, I can sleep in, I can take a little bit of rest. And this is kind of where, my interest in you started like forming in the back of my mind. Interest meaning like I wanted to talk to you about this because I just had seen somewhere on the social media feeds that you had lost everything. You disappeared
Mm-hmm.
for a while, and then at some point a couple months ago, a year ago, I don't know, I see your wife make a post of you with all this hair and beard and hat with an electric guitar and a band. And she said, "My husband is a rock star." And I saw this and I thought, this is too good to not dig in and ask.
Yeah.
So you rest after this marathon of church work, church startup, church plant, open your life all the time, and now you're just a guy who's able to sleep in finally. Walk us through
Yeah.
what happens between I'm a guy who can sleep in to the hat and the hair and the beard and the band and my husband is a rock star.
I love that so much. I
Connect the
don't know what
dots.
post you're talking about, but because there's probably like four of them. But Morgan she is an encourager, but also she's a super fan, so it's cool.
Well, just so you know, what I did in the intro to this whole series, I tell some snippets of the stories of some of my guests, and you're in one of the snippets. And the
Cool.
snippet is a pastor's house burns down and he becomes a rock star.
That's it.
That's it, man. So, what happened? Walk us through it.
So we have to chase. the music thread a little ways back, years and years, right?
Uh-huh.
But there's something else happening that year where like somebody convinced me finally to do there's a famous music venue in our city that does this open mic um, that like John Mayer and Sugarland and like there's people who got discovered out of this place, right?
Wow.
Um,
Mhm.
and so um, and I think because of all of that prestige and mystique, I had always like I've been a musician forever. I've written songs. That wasn't a primary focal point of my life. And so all that added together and being a little intimidated of it, like I lived here for years and never done it. And it happens every Monday in my city.
Mhm.
Um, and so somebody just convinced me to sign up for one. Like, dude, pay $7, get on the spreadsheet. Um, and so that summer that we moved into the house and we were wrapping up the church and everything, I committed. They opened it up and I just said, I'm going to grab this one. And that, I think it's partly like wiring and my, brain makeup, emotional makeup. I don't know. But um, something about having that deadline um, and knowing that I have to have three original songs prepared. I can't do any covers. Um, I just all of a sudden I started writing songs like crazy. Um, they just started to pour out again, like they did when I was in high school. Um, and that's like the early part of this is like it's all tied up with my relationship with church and religion. But my youth pastor convinced me to learn guitar. I think I was 16, maybe late 15. It was so that he could have a worship leader for his youth group.
Right.
I was an outgoing, tall person who could sing, and he was like, "Just learn to play guitar, play a few chords. It'll be rough at first, but you can do it." Um, and I think I had a friend that was like kind of showing me a few chords anyway, and so like that was all converging, and I was like, I'm going to play guitar. Um, and being the worship leader at 16 for my youth group spiraled into people seeing like ministry potential and that being like a vocational path for my life. Um, and while that's developing, I began to write songs. I didn't know it was a strength. I just thought that that's what you do. You learn to play guitar, you write some original music, you rock out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and
Not everyone thinks that, by the way.
right. I'm realizing that now. There's a lot of things that I think are normal that people don't think are normal.
Right.
But that's the story of my life, basically.
Mhm.
But I wrote some songs that when I was in late high school, junior senior year, that people thought were good, and I was in a band that people thought were good, and I had met someone who I'm not gonna say their name or put them on blast, but um, I met someone who said, "Come to Nashville. It'd be great. We'll record a demo or an EP or whatever. A few songs. We'll get you something that you can put in people's hands. It'd be amazing. Love your voice. Love your songs." And so we went up there, and in like one weekend, we had some music that I was like really excited about
Mhm.
that was unfinished. And then we came home and we tried to schedule that second session to get back up to Nashville and do that thing. And the guy had taken our money and just stopped
Oh,
returning
oh, bummer.
our calls.
Wow.
Um, and so that's my tragic music backstory is that
Mhm.
um, the classic Nashville thing where you get burned by a producer
Hmm.
absolutely happened.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that that reinforced the idea that to me, I was supposed to like, how do I put a fine point on it? I felt at the time the message I was receiving was focus less on yourself and like a solo music career, even if that's a Christian music, quote unquote, um, career, and just focus on humbly serving the church. You'll use your music to do that, which I did as like a music minister or worship pastor, whatever y'all are familiar with calling it. But that's I'd left my solo music thing, my
Hmm.
songwriting, mostly in the past. I still wrote songs. I still play guitar, and I think that mostly my relationship with music from like 2000 and let's just say 2005 until 2024 was Andrew's a guy that has guitars hanging on his wall for some reason. Um, when people hear me play, they're like, "Oh." People hear me sing, they're like, "Oh." Um,
Hmm.
and then every once in a while, I would pick up a gig, and it was fun, but I don't really have time to do it right because I packed my life, as we had discussed, with
Hmm.
all these other
Yeah.
things. Um, and so follow that thread back up to 2024, and I get to that open mic. And by the way, like the whole city comes out because my wife puts on the internet that I'm gonna do it, and we have good friends, and so
Right.
the room is packed. There's like 150 people there. Not all of them for me, but uh, and it goes well, and it is a competition. I didn't win the competition. That's unimportant. But I am competitive, and so it did hurt.
Let's be
But it's like
honest.
dude, it's your first time singing your original music in like 20 years. Chill
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, there were other musicians in the room that night that were like, dude, pardon my language, what the hell have you
Hmm.
been doing?
Hmm.
Um, I don't even think it was hell, but
Hmm.
why? Why were you sitting on this? Like this cannot be your first time back at this. And like I said, I had a song in my back pocket that was good, and then I was writing 2 or 3 songs a week before that open mic, just because I was inspired and I wanted to have the best, catchiest songs possible, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and so it was probably 3 days before that open mic, I wrote a song called "Long Way Around," which is kind of like a catchy Southern rock kind of thing. Maybe you said we could play some of it.
Yeah, so let's hit pause and let's put in a section of it for everybody. What's your favorite part about the song?
My favorite part is telling the story of the song, which is that me and Morgan actually, that was the first song that we kind of co-wrote. She won't
Oh,
claim it,
okay.
um, but we were around the house. The kids were at school, I believe, or they were somewhere. I think they were at camp actually, because again, this was like a few days before I go on stage, and I'm like, I want to write this song about like I want to write like a road trip song,
Hmm.
um, like windows down, that kind of thing. And so I just like start playing around with a thing, and she was like, what if it's a song about how we used to be able to take road trips, and so we would love uh, we would love to be back in the phase of life where we could just jump in
Yeah.
and like where we don't have to give notice to 50,000 people and find accommodations for kids or whatever. Do you remember when we just used to be able to go?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that became the premise of the song. Let's put these cell phones down. We'll just find our own way together. Let's pretend like it's 1970, and just go drive.
Yeah.
Even, and I was thinking like, even if we just drive like to the other side of Atlanta and back,
Mm-hmm.
um, and so yeah, long way around kind of became like the the like quote unquote hit that everybody just related to. When I tell the story that like we literally wrote the song sitting on our couch surrounded by our kids' clutter and just like remembering when the clutter living room and the sectional used to be like the Toyota, and we're just going right. um so yeah, it's a it's a good one, it's a fond one.
Yeah. What have people told you about that when you played it, and how's it been received?
I think the coolest thing that anybody has said about that song is another songwriter who I really respect was like, "You're the only person that I know, the only friend I have that when somebody says the name of one of their songs, I just have to burst it out and sing it." Um,
Oh, yeah.
and because it's a song that like I don't have a chorus in the song until the very end
Hmm.
of the song.
Hmm.
And then you're just belting it and singing it over and over, and it's like an earworm thing, right? That you can't
Yeah.
get out of your head.
Yeah.
um so yeah, and I mean, oddly enough, that was the song that we as the first one that we knew we were going to record when we had the opportunity to record.
Mm-hmm.
um which is another story that I don't know if you want to make time for, but
I got time.
we you get time. we we essentially as it was a very very unlikely circumstance that I even would know this person exists, but a friend of a friend, a friend of a very new friend, a recent acquaintance, um, owns the best recording studio in New Mexico.
Hmm.
Um, and I already told you that before we went, before the house tragedy, that we had just returned from Santa Fe. And what I didn't say was that my granddad, my great granddad, my dad, I'm the first. I think it's safe to say that I'm the first generation of Holley that was not born in New Mexico for a few generations.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of Albuquerque, a lot of rural Santa Fe, Albuquerque kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, but so very, very fond of New Mexico in general. I have a lot of childhood memories of just going out there, hanging out with my grandparents, getting into trouble. Um, just go walking around the neighborhood doing stuff I would never let my kids do. Um, I meet the guy, Kenny Riley. Shout out Kenny, love you. Um, and he's like, "Look, you have a connection to the place. I would love to have you out. Just come on, we'll find a week." He's like, "The only time I can do it is the week before Thanksgiving." So he gave me a deadline, which, as you remember, I love.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and so I just said yes. I had to figure out a way to scrounge up the money, but he gave me like the friends and family discount. And so he brought me out, and some friends of his put me up in their house, which is that friend is the reason that we actually knew each other. He was the bridge person.
Hmm.
But I had Long Way Round, and I had a couple of other songs probably written at that point, but I had to write music to record, he said, I need 6 of your best songs. And I was like, I think I have 6 songs, period.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, we went and we did that. We got 6 songs down for an EP. About a month later, I had my first show, which is probably where my husband as a rock star came. In the
Okay.
aftermath of that show, we had a sold out room in that kind of infamous, famous, prestigious listening room that I was telling you about in our city.
Mm.
Um, and I had called it my unretirement party, which is it it's funny, but it's beautiful, because I hadn't even conceived. At the time, I hadn't even realized that I had retired from music,
Mm.
um, until like 19, 20 years later, right?
Mm. Wow.
And so that was a big milestone there. From that show, somebody connected me with a record label. They basically said, "Hey, you got to talk to this guy." And "Long Way Round" was the song that got me signed to a label
Wow.
within a couple of months of recording the first thing I'd ever recorded, right?
Yeah. So wild, man. So I wish we had time to hear all the songs. I'll put in the show notes how people can find you, and we'll share that at the end. But one question I've been dying to ask is, what did you notice was different about your writing now compared to what used to come out many years ago?
Hmm. That's a great question because I I've gone through a an interesting journey with my faith.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that I preface it with that is because uh, almost all of the songs I was writing before were worship songs,
Mm-hmm.
or songs about faith that were all kind of like rainbow, glowy optimism,
Mm-hmm.
like God, I'll give you my life, just like just kind of pouring rhymes and rhythm out of this like um, I don't know, let's just say optimistic veneer of faith that
Mm-hmm.
I thought at the time was deep faith, and I think I I don't want to discount where I was, right?
Yeah.
But the the music I was writing was like an encapsulation
Mm-hmm.
of that.
Yeah.
Um, Now the music I'm writing is about everything, um, including faith, including the grapple to hang on to faith
Mm-hmm.
through, the twists that life gives you, and trying to understand it all. I write a lot about Morgan, which is why she's my biggest fan.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I do think that there's an acute awareness of the fact that my kids, the love of my life, um, all of that was just 10 more minutes and could have been gone.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Do you have any writing in your music from the new catalog that kind of touches on some of the changes and the potential losses and the gratefulness for life and what you have? Do you have a song that comes up that encompasses some of that?
Yeah. I have the song. It's called Nothing Lasts Forever.
Okay, well, let's put it on, okay? Let's let everybody hear it for just a second.
Great.
So, what do you love about that song?
Um, I I don't know. I don't know if I love it. I have a I have a complicated relationship with that song
Okay.
because um, it makes me feel all my feelings again
Mm,
every time, right?
mm. Wow. So maybe a better
Um,
way to ask it would be, so what's important about that song?
yeah. Um, that song takes like kind of three window looks into like that idea of nothing lasts forever.
Hmm.
So um, stuff is evaporating right before our eyes, and we don't realize it because we're watching Netflix and we're on our phones, and or we're just exhausted and we're trying to pay for rent and we're working and we're just tired at the end of the day and we didn't take that extra time with our kids or our spouse.
Yeah.
um, but the three window glances of that idea that I try to refract in the song is the first verse is about the fire and about um, how like I did we didn't mean to, but because we didn't actually know that this was against the rules, but we went back in the house like the next day.
Okay.
Um, and we didn't mess with anything. We were just trying to see if anything was salvageable. Um, and again, we don't know the rules. So like
Hmm.
somebody dropped us off and we're like looking around and um it became pretty obvious like we couldn't go up the stairs. We could just kind of see what we could see in the door. And it's like all of the art picture frames, that held family pictures and the stuff that like we just visually took for granted and the things that like gave our days purpose, even if it's a bad purpose, like the TV,
Hmm.
what was melted off the wall,
Mm.
and the it was just like ash, dust, smoke, stench. I can still remember the smell
Mm.
um, of like melted plastic and wood and
Yeah.
all of all of that uh, all of that stuff all of a sudden replaced what I knew was home. The good smells,
Hmm.
um, the amazing smiling pictures on the wall. And so that first verse is about that, um, being confronted with the fact that your stuff is not going to last forever, even if you manage to hold on to it until you're gone.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and then the second verse is about my parents. And the second and third verse are the verses that I'll be able to make it through with a few more years of therapy
Hmm. Wow.
without crying on stage. But
Mm.
um, the that thing that we some of us struggle with, and some of us may not even know it. But not realizing that one day you're going to try to pick up the phone and call your parent,
Hmm.
and they won't be there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's true.
And so um, I think you could make the argument that I was given a blessing in this tragedy of seeing how fragile life is,
Hmm.
so that while my mom and my dad are still around, that maybe I have enough a little bit more perspective to want to pick up the phone
Hmm.
even when my day's busy.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
um Yeah, and the third verse is about my kids growing up too fast.
Hmm.
Um, and there's a mental image, or there's a lyric in there about my oldest son grasping my finger, and then all of a sudden he's a whole man with a deep voice, and um, and yeah, the song, just the refrain is nothing lasts forever,
Yeah.
and if
Wow.
nothing lasts forever, then we got to make it count.
Hmm. What comes to my mind, Andrew, listening to some of this is way, way, way back when I was fresh out of seminary, I was working at a church in Orlando. It was down in the downtown setting, and we always had people who were living on the street coming in asking for help, and a lot of times they were filled with shame, like, I hate asking, all this. And I developed this phrase that I think is true. And it was, everybody wants to see a miracle, but nobody wants to need one. Right?
Yep.
And I've turned that around on myself actually a number of times. Like, oh, everybody wants to experience true openness and care and vulnerability, but nobody wants to be the one that needs that. Everybody wants to have an appreciation for their lives and their parents and their kids, but nobody wants to come to the point where they have lost everything and they have nothing but perspective, because there's nothing else to take up your time anymore. You're just sitting there thinking about what you have. And it sounds to me like this loss and this murky middle woke that up in you. And maybe we do a future episode on just that subject alone, a perspective change. And I wanted to ask you, as we finish up today, as you look back on this perspective change of yours, the ending, the murky middle, the new beginning, if you were going to sit with someone who has experienced a major change and they're in that zone of, I don't know what's coming next,
Mm-hmm.
what empathetic uh, words would you share? And then what advice would you share with them that could be helpful from your experience?
Well, I think first of all, I would do everything I can, even if I have to go into debt or further into debt, uh, to pay for their therapy.
Hmm. Wow.
Um, whatever kind of change it is, I just think we could benefit from some help getting through it.
Hmm.
Um, but um, I don't know. I'm I'm weird now. I'm a little slow to give advice.
Hmm.
Um, but I would listen, um, and I would be there. And I think the I think the thing that I keep coming back to, for myself and for others that are going through a similar situation, is like the both sides of the same coin. Maybe is like, um, draw close to the people, to like your people, right? So like my relationship with my wife and my kids has uh become more central. It's become a stronger focus in my life, and I think that that's just a necessary corrective, right, for me, and it may not be for somebody else in their situation, but you know the figuring out the way forward. um I don't think you're going to figure it out without your people, whether even if you're not spoused up, or even if you don't have kids,
Hmm.
your people.
Hmm.
And I've become a little more insular, um, I think that your listeners can probably hear from my story that I was maybe not insular enough, and I kind of went around with my people antennas, like who can I befriend today, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so maybe there's an adjustment that needs to happen there, but for that person. But one piece of advice that I could give that I don't know if I would give on day one um,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Give him some
would
time.
be would be just to and not only like your little nuclear unit or whatever you want to call it, but uh, the the people that are that like mediator for you, like the people who, yeah, I said before, like when there's a tragedy and the the victim or the person who's going through that trauma or the person who's going through the change maybe can't handle or manage the situation, and there's a person that is close by that can just do it,
Mhm.
even if it's not like the most meaningful. You wouldn't, maybe a person you wouldn't say is your closest friend or whatever, just the person, a person that you know that you can trust to help you manage this.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think it's important to find those people
Mhm.
and to call them out and let them know that they are that for you,
Mhm. Mhm.
and lean on what they can provide in helping you manage some of the things, some of the plates that are going to drop while you're trying to find your way through.
Mhm. Yeah. It's good, man. Really great. Yeah, I hear a theme of lean into your people. Don't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. How can people find you, Andrew, if they want to get in touch, talk, or listen to your music?
Um, Pretty much everything I do is through Instagram. That might change, but I have no idea what I'm doing. Um,
Mhm.
so I figure Instagram is a nice central place. And so my handle is Andrew underscore Holley,
H
and
O
I'm
L
with an
L E Y.
EY.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. And how can they find your music?
Um, Again, I try to post clips that you might not hear on the major platforms on Instagram. So I like to engage people there,
Okay.
just because I'm a community person, and you can listen on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, but we don't get to have a conversation there.
Yeah.
So but yeah, we got the one EP that's out now, and it's under my name, Andrew Holley, and we are going into the studio in September, and we'll work on our second project, which is going to be with the Andrew Holley band. So
Nice.
I've found my people.
I love it, man. I can't wait to come see you play in person one day. Um, Man, this has been great. A thought comes to my mind as we finish up today, this final episode of this season of the podcast. Do you have a song that you think is like a really positive message you want to leave with everybody?
I do. Um, I've got a song called "Something to Hold" that
Hmm.
it, it it's a little bit of a backwards answer to your question, but it's a it's a song that is, pause 1 second on the production. I'm trying to figure out if that's what the song I want to say. Um,
Okay.
um, all right, I'm going to re-answer.
Yeah, okay. So do you have a song that's like a really positive message you like to leave people with?
Um, I do, and it's a love song, so that makes it a little odd because it's not your classical happy, us song, but it's a song that I wrote for my wife on our 16th anniversary, and it was to completely bail myself out for forgetting her song, the first song that I ever wrote for her, and the song that I wrote actually to propose to her. I didn't write it down, and it was forgotten within weeks. It's gone. And so the song, which is kind of penance for that song, on our 16th anniversary, uh, is called "Fine Wine,"
Hmm.
and it's my ode to her and to us,
Hmm.
because I do feel like, and it's one of the things that I keep coming back to even in this conversation, but me and Morgan's relationship has just gotten so much stronger, but not just stronger, sweeter. Like we we've known each other since summer of 2005, and we're like, we maybe have more puppy love now. Uh, Now that's impossible, but we're genuinely, we just enjoy each other, and I know that that has been born out of us surviving together. um but yeah, I would love for everybody to check out Fine Wine.
Go over and check out Fine Wine, or should we put it on? Should we put it on the episode?
Yeah, why not?
All right, so we're going to cue it, and as we finish up our season finale, thank you, Andrew, for being here, my friend. Um, and everybody enjoy a little fine wine, and that's us signing off on the How People Grow podcast. Thank you for Andrew for being here, my friend.
Thank you for having me.